Hi guys and welcome to Quiet Voice Podcast channel. Tonight we travel down the heavy brown waters of the Mississippi River toward a Louisiana sugar plantation in the year 1837, where the air smells of wet earth, smoke, and boiling cane. You hear frogs hidden deep inside the reeds while thick fog curls above the water like drifting breath. Somewhere ahead, a bell waits to drag hundreds of exhausted people from sleep before sunrise. And the strange part is this. Sugar once looked luxurious on elegant dining tables across the Atlantic world. Yet almost nobody sipping sweet coffee truly imagined the suffering hidden inside every sparkling spoonful. What would happen if you suddenly stepped into that world yourself? With no escape, no comfort, and no modern understanding waiting nearby. So, before you settle into the story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, and while you're here, comment below with your location and local time. Now, dim the lights. The riverboat groans softly beneath your feet as it pushes through the muddy current. The evening air feels warm and damp against your skin. Mosquitoes circle your face with relentless patience. Their thin buzzing never fully disappears. You stand near bundles of cargo while the shoreline slowly sharpens through the mist. Cypress trees lean over the water with tangled grey moss hanging from their branches. The landscape feels ancient and watchful. Even the silence seems heavy. The man steering the boat spits tobacco into the river and barely glances toward you. He has made this journey many times before. Sugar plantations line parts of this river like small kingdoms, each one hungry for labour, profit, and speed. As the boat nears the dock, you notice the smell first. Smoke drifts from distant chimneys. Wet cane leaves rot near the shore. Animal manure mixes with river mud. The odour settles deep into your nose and refuses to leave. Lanterns flicker near the landing area. A few men move barrels onto the dock while overseers watch with folded arms. Nobody wastes movement here. Energy matters too much. You quickly learn an uncomfortable truth. Louisiana sugar plantations operated on punishing schedules because sugar cane spoiled rapidly after harvest. Once cut, the cane had to reach the mill quickly, or valuable sweetness vanished. Historians widely agree this created one of the harshest labour systems in North America. You step off the boat carefully because the wooden planks feel slick beneath your shoes. Mud sticks instantly to your soles. The ground almost swallows your feet. Nearby, chained mules snort and stomp at insects. You hear distant coughing from one of the cabins, somewhere farther inland. A baby cries briefly before falling silent again. An overseer carrying a lantern studies new arrivals with cold efficiency. His boots shine despite the mud. A leather whip hangs loosely from his side, almost casually, which somehow feels worse. You are marched along a narrow dirt path leading away from the river. Sugarcane stretches across the landscape in tall green walls. Even under moonlight, the fields seem endless. The leaves scrape against each other in the breeze with a dry whispering sound. It almost resembles quiet conversation. For a moment, you imagine the plants themselves warning you to turn back. But there is nowhere else to go. The plantation house rises ahead on slightly higher ground. Candlelight glows through large windows. Music drifts faintly across the dark fields. Someone inside laughs warmly during dinner. The contrast feels impossible to ignore. Closer to the field stand rows of rough cabins built from timber and packed clay. Smoke slips through cracks in the roofs. The quarters appear cramped even in darkness. You pass a woman stirring something inside an iron pot over an outdoor fire. The smell of cornmeal and onions briefly cuts through the swamp air. A child beside her rubs tired eyes while leaning against her skirt. Nobody speaks loudly. People here save strength whenever possible. You're guided toward an empty space inside one of the cabins. The room feels hot and crowded. Several people already sleep on the rough pallets stuffed with moss or scraps of cloth. Their breathing fills the darkness with uneven rhythm. The walls barely stop the outside air. Humidity presses inward from every direction. One older man glances toward you briefly. His face looks worn smooth by exhaustion. After a moment, he quietly offers a place near the wall. That small gesture matters more than you expected. You lower yourself onto the floorboards and instantly feel tiny movements beneath the wood. Rats live everywhere on plantations. They steal grain, chew fabric, and dart across sleeping bodies during the night. Nobody seems surprised anymore. Outside, insects scream endlessly in the trees. Sleep comes slowly because the plantation never truly becomes quiet. Horses shuffle in distant stables. Chains clink faintly somewhere near the storage yard. Cane leaves rustle beneath shifting wind. Then, without warning, a bell explodes through the darkness. The sound cuts straight through your chest. People around you rise immediately, almost automatically. No one complains. Complaints waste breath. A woman wraps cloth around her hair while another quickly shakes sleeping children awake. The day begins long before sunrise. You stumble outside into thick darkness. The air already feels warm and wet. Dew coats the ground so heavily that your shoes soak through within minutes. Workers gather near the edge of the fields carrying cutting knives and hoes. Some cough into their sleeves. Others stare blankly ahead with empty fatigue. Breakfast arrives quickly. A small ration of cornmeal mush. Nothing more. You eat standing up because there is no time to sit comfortably. The food tastes bland and slightly smoky. Still, your stomach demands every bite. An overseer rides past on horseback while counting workers carefully. Plantation records from Louisiana reveal constant obsession with numbers, productivity, and crop yield. Enslaved people were measured like equipment, age, strength, injuries, and output often appeared in account books beside livestock inventories. That reality settles over you with sickening weight. Soon the sky begins turning pale grey behind the trees. Fog hangs low across the fields. Cane stalks glisten with moisture. Then the labour starts. You grip a cane knife awkwardly while stepping between rows taller than your shoulders. The leaves slash against exposed skin with razor-sharp edges. Within minutes, thin cuts sting across your hands and wrists. Sugarcane harvesting demands relentless repetition. Bend, chop, strip leaves, stack stalks, repeat, again and again. The rhythm becomes brutal very quickly. Nearby workers move faster than you because they have no choice. Slow labour invites punishment. You hear the sharp crack of an overseer shouting at someone farther down the row. Birds rise suddenly from the fields as voices echo through morning mist. The heat builds with terrifying speed after sunrise. Louisiana humidity traps warmth against your body until breathing itself feels difficult. Sweat pours down your neck and soaks your clothes completely. Mosquitoes feast constantly. Your shoulders begin aching before the morning fully arrives. Cane stalks feel heavier each hour. Mud sucks greedily at every step. Ants crawl over fallen leaves and onto your boots. At one point, you straighten your back briefly and glance toward the distant plantation house. Sunlight flashes across its windows. It looks peaceful from far away. That illusion disappears when you hear coughing nearby. A worker beside you wipes blood from cracked fingers without pausing. Another quietly limps through the rows with swollen ankles. Nobody stops unless physically unable to continue. Sugar cultivation in Louisiana expanded rapidly during the early 19th century because new processing methods increased profits enormously. Wealthy planters rushed into the industry hoping to compete with Caribbean sugar economies. Some historians still debate whether Louisiana plantations consciously copied the harshest Caribbean labor systems or simply arrived at similar brutality through economic pressure alone. Either way, the result feels devastatingly clear around you. Hours pass slowly beneath the rising sun. The smell of crushed cane becomes strangely sweet and sour at the same time. It mixes with sweat, mud, and smoke drifting from the mill. You finally receive a brief midday pause. Workers gather beneath sparse shade near the field edge. Some drink water carefully from wooden buckets. Others remain silent with eyes closed, conserving energy. The water tastes warm and slightly muddy. A younger man nearby quietly jokes that even the mosquitoes seem overworked here. A few tired smiles appear around him. Tiny moments of humour survive even in terrible places. That surprises you most. Life continues stubbornly. One woman hums softly while adjusting cloth around blistered palms. The melody drifts through humid air almost like prayer. You cannot understand every word, but the sadness inside the song feels unmistakable. Plantation owners often feared music, gatherings, and storytelling among enslaved communities because shared culture strengthened identity and resistance. Yet songs endured anyway. Rhythms travelled through fields, cabins, churches, and riverbanks despite constant surveillance. The break ends quickly. Work resumes under full afternoon heat. The sun pounds against your shoulders while insects swarm thicker than before. Every movement feels slower now. You begin noticing how dangerous the fields truly are. Snakes slide through cane roots searching for cooler ground. Sharp tools swing constantly near tired bodies. One careless motion could destroy a hand forever. A worker farther down suddenly cries out after slicing his palm. Blood darkens the cane leaves instantly. The overseer barely pauses before ordering him back to work with a cloth wrapped tightly around the wound. Mercy seems expensive here. As daylight stretches onward, carts piled high with harvested cane creak toward the mill. Mules strain against heavy loads while drivers shout commands. The boiling house chimney releases thick black smoke into the humid sky. People whisper about the place quietly because the work there often continues through the entire night during harvest season. Fires must stay burning. Cane juice must keep moving through the process before spoilage begins. You feel drawn toward the building despite yourself. From outside, the mill sounds alive. Gears grind loudly. Steam hisses through pipes. Men shout above the machinery. The scent pouring outward feels overwhelming, sweet enough to make your stomach turn. Workers feed cane stalks into crushing rollers that can easily drag arms inside. Accidents happened often on sugar plantations. Contemporary accounts describe horrifying injuries caused by machinery that never stopped moving during harvest periods. Even standing nearby makes your pulse quicken. By evening, your muscles shake with exhaustion. Blisters rise across your palms. Mud cakes your legs almost to the knees. Still, more tasks remain. Tools must be cleaned, animals fed, water carried, fires maintained. The sky slowly darkens into deep purple while frogs begin croaking from nearby swamps. Smoke from cooking fires drifts between cabins in soft grey ribbons. You return to the quarters, barely able to stand upright. Dinner arrives in small portions: beans, cornbread, salted pork with more fat than meat, yet the smell alone feels comforting after endless labour. People speak quietly during the meal. Someone shares rumours about rising sugar prices in New Orleans. Another mentions an alligator spotted near the riverbank. Children chase each other briefly between cabins before weary mothers call them back inside. For a few moments, the plantation almost resembles an ordinary village. Then the bell rings again in the darkness, reminding everyone exactly where they are. You lie down on rough bedding while night insects pulse outside like distant machinery. Every part of your body aches deeply now. Your hands burn. Your throat feels raw from heat and dust. And suddenly you understand something terrible. You have survived only one single day. The bell sounds again while the sky remains black, and your body answers before your mind does. You rise from the pallet with stiff arms, sore knees, and a mouth dry as old cotton. The cabin smells of smoke, damp wood, and too many sleeping bodies packed too close together. Outside, the air has not cooled much during the night. It presses against your face like a warm, wet cloth. Stars fade slowly above the trees, but the plantation is already moving. You hear feet in mud, buckets knocking against knees, and someone coughing near the doorway. A woman ties a strip of cloth around her fingers without looking down. The cloth is already stained from work that never waits politely for healing. Breakfast is brief and quiet. Cornmeal mush slides into your stomach without comfort or flavour. A little molasses sweetens one corner of the bowl, which feels almost insulting here. Sweetness has rules. You're sent toward the cane fields with the others. The path is narrow, slick, and rutted by wagon wheels on both sides. Grass shines with dew, and every step releases the smell of mud and crushed weeds. The cane stands taller than you, thick and green beneath the pale morning light. Its leaves tremble in the breeze with a whispering sound. It looks beautiful from a distance, which is almost cruel. At the field edge, the overseer explains nothing kindly. Work begins with gestures, commands, and impatient pointing. You are placed among cutters who already know how to survive the rhythm. The knife feels heavy in your hand. Its blade catches dim light as you lift it. You swing at the base of a stalk, but the cane resists. Again, the second strike lands better, and the stalk falls with a wet snap. Juice beads along the cut surface, smells grassy, sharp, and faintly sweet. Now you strip the leaves. Their edges bite your wrists. You drag the stalk into a pile, turn back, bend again, and raise the knife. There is no mystery in the work. That is part of the punishment. It is simple enough to repeat, and hard enough to break you. Louisiana sugar cane demanded a fierce harvest season because planters needed the crop cut and processed quickly. Cane lost quality after cutting, so delay could cost money. That urgency made the workday stretch cruelly during grinding season. You feel that urgency in every shout. The overseer rides along the row, horse hooves thudding softly in wet earth. He does not need to speak often. His presence changes posture, pace, and breathing. Around you, experienced workers move with controlled economy. They waste no swing, no step, no glance. Their knowledge is carried in muscle and scar. You try to copy them, but your body is clumsy. The knife lands awkwardly. Your shoulders tighten. Your back complains with a deep, slow ache. The sun climbs higher, and the field changes character. What began as damp and grey becomes bright and suffocating. Heat gathers between the cane rows until the air feels trapped and used. Sweat runs into your eyes. You blink against the sting and keep cutting. The leaves scratch your cheeks. Insects cling to your neck. Somewhere close, a grasshopper clicks sharply and vanishes into green blades. By mid-morning, your hands no longer feel like your own. Blisters swell beneath the skin. The handle rubs them open with each motion, and the sting becomes constant. A man beside you notices your grip failing. Without speaking, he shifts his own hands and shows you how to angle the blade. His lesson lasts only a few seconds. It is enough. This quiet teaching keeps people alive in places designed to exhaust them. Skills pass through looks, gestures, jokes, songs, and corrections too small for overseers to notice. A plantation may claim ownership over bodies, but it cannot fully control knowledge. The field fills with sounds that never blend into peace. Knives chop, cane cracks, wagons creak, mules snort, overseers call out names and numbers. Numbers matter everywhere here. A quirky detail hides inside this grim system. Some planters weighed cane loads so obsessively that they argued over minor differences, like merchants fussing over tea leaves. They wrote figures in ledgers as though columns of ink could make suffering look tidy. The ledgers did not smell of sweat. You pause for water when allowed. The bucket is passed down the row, warm from the sun and shared by many mouths. You drink quickly because others wait behind you. The taste is earthy and metallic. One older woman whispers that water tastes better when stolen from rain barrels. Her eyes brighten for a moment. Then she bends again and disappears into work. Your stomach cramps by midday. Hunger grows sharper because the body demands more than it receives. The sun hangs overhead, white and merciless, flattening shadow beneath every stalk. A short rest arrives at last. People sit wherever the ground is least muddy. Some lean against bundles of cut cane. Others stretch their fingers carefully, opening and closing swollen hands. A man removes a tiny packet wrapped in cloth. Inside are herbs, dried leaves, and something that smells bitter. He chews slowly, then offers a pinch to someone with a cough. Healing lives here too. Enslaved communities across Louisiana preserved African, indigenous, and European healing practices, often blending them in practical ways. Planters sometimes dismissed these remedies, while still depending on enslaved healers when formal medicine failed. Historians still argue whether some plantation medical records reveal genuine concern, financial calculation, or both tangled together. You listen to us as the man explains which leaves cool fever. His voice is low and steady. The knowledge feels precious because it belongs to memory, not paper. The rest ends too quickly. Back in the row, your legs feel heavier. The cane seems endless. Standing in green ranks that continue past sight, you begin counting stalks, then lose count almost immediately. The mind searches for escape. You notice tiny worlds beneath the cane. Red ants build along broken roots. Beetles shine like polished buttons on damp soil. A small lizard darts over your foot and vanishes. These details should be beautiful. Instead, they become reminders that everything here adapts better than you. By afternoon, wagons arrive more often. Cut cane must be hauled away for crushing. Drivers shout as teams pull loaded carts toward the mill. The wheels leave deep tracks in the mud. When a cart sticks, several workers push from behind while the mules strain forward. Mud splashes across skirts, trousers, and bare legs. You help push once, shoulder pressed against rough wood. The cart barely moves. Someone laughs softly and says the mud has more appetite than the overseer. A few people smile. Humour slips through suffering like water through reeds. It does not erase anything. It simply proves the mind has not surrendered. The overseer hears the laugh and turns sharply. Silence falls. Everyone pushes harder. The cart lurches free. Late in the day, you're moved to bundling. This work seems easier until you try it. Cane stalks must be gathered, aligned, and tied for transport, and each bundle scrapes your arms raw. Sugarcane leaves leave thin cuts that burn when sweat touches them. Your skin feels striped with invisible fire. The smell of crushed cane thickens around you. A boy not yet grown carries bundles nearly as tall as himself. He moves with frightening skill. Childhood here is not protected by tenderness. You watch him stumble once, then recover before anyone can shout. His face stays blank, but his breathing quickens. He has learned the danger of showing pain too clearly. Towards sunset, light turns amber across the fields. The cane glows at the edges, as if the whole landscape has been brushed with gold. For one strange moment, beauty and cruelty stand together without apology. Then the mosquitoes rise. They come from ditches, puddles, and shaded grass in hungry clouds. Their whining surrounds your ears. You slap your neck, leaving smears of blood that may be yours or theirs. Malaria, yellow fever, and other illnesses haunted lowland Louisiana, especially near waterways and swamps. People in 1837 did not understand mosquito transmission as modern science does. They blamed bad air, damp ground, and seasonal vapours. The belief in bad air made sense when every breath smelled rotten. Evening does not end the labour cleanly. Tools must be counted. Cane piles must be checked. Animals must be led away, watered, fed, and secured. You carry water with aching arms while twilight deepens. The bucket handle bites into your palm. Each step sloshes water against your leg, cool for 1 second, then sticky. Near the mule pen, the smell becomes powerful. Warm hide, manure, wet hay, and old leather thicken the air. The animals flick their ears at insects and stare with dark, exhausted eyes. They are trapped too. The thought comes quietly and leaves slowly. At last you return toward the quarters. Cooking fires glow between cabins, small orange circles against the blue darkness. Smoke lifts slowly because the humid air seems too tired to carry it. Dinner is more welcome than it should be. A pot of beans has simmered with scraps of salted meat. Cornbread rests wrapped in cloth near the fire. You sit on an overturned crate and eat with both hands. The beans taste smoky, salty, and earthy. Your hunger softens enough to let you notice other things. A young woman braids a child's hair by firelight. An older man repairs a torn shoe with patient fingers. Someone sharpens a knife not for violence, but for another day of cane. Metal whispers against stone, conversations rise and fall softly. People speak of work, weather, sickness, small trades, and someone seen near the river with fresh fish. Their voices create a fragile shelter. You begin to understand that survival is not only endurance, it is organization, memory, timing, secrecy, and care. It is knowing when to speak, when to laugh, when to lower your eyes, and when to hold another person upright without making a scene. The night grows deeper. Inside the cabin, heat remains trapped under the low roof. You lie down carefully because every muscle protests. Your hands throb in time with your heartbeat. Outside, frogs call from the wet ground. An owl cries once from the trees. The plantation house sits beyond the dark, bright with lamps, distant as another country. Sleep approaches slowly, carrying no promise of rest. You close your eyes and still feel the cane leaves scraping your skin. Your arms remember the swing of the knife. Your ears keep hearing the field, chop after chop after chop. The work has entered you. You wake with your shirt clinging to your back, damp from sweat that never truly dried. The cabin air feels thick enough to chew. Smoke lingers near the roof beams, trapped above sleeping heads like a low grey ceiling. Outside, the morning's not fresh. It is simply another kind of wet. You step into darkness and feel mud press between your toes through worn shoes. The ground has softened overnight, fed by mist, seepage, and the slow breath of the nearby swamp. Every footprint fills with water almost as soon as it forms. The air smells of damp ashes, standing water, and green things rotting sweetly in ditches. Frogs keep calling from unseen places. Their voices overlap until the darkness seems to pulse. This is Louisiana in its lowland mood. Heat here does not merely arrive from the sun. It rises from the soil, gathers in clothing, and settles inside the lungs. Even before the day brightens, your body understands it is being tested. You're sent toward a drainage ditch with a group carrying hose and shovels. Cane fields require water, but too much water ruins roots and slows movement. Plantation life depends on controlling mud, though mud enjoys winning. The overseer points toward a clogged channel. Leaves, silt, and broken cane stalks have gathered in the shallow water. Mosquitoes hover above it in glittering clouds. Your task is to clear it. You push the shovel into the muck and feel it suck back with stubborn strength. The first load comes up heavy, black, and shining. It smells sour, like old eggs and drowned grass. You turn and throw it onto the bank. Again the shovel sinks. Again. The mud resists. Water slides over your shoes and chills your ankles for one brief moment before turning warm. A man beside you works without wasted motion. He has tied cloth around his calves to slow leeches and biting insects. It does not stop them, but it discourages the ambitious ones. He notices you staring and gives a tired smile. "You will learn which creatures want blood," he murmurs. That is comfort, apparently. Louisiana sugar plantations often occupied rich alluvial land near rivers, where soil could be wonderfully fertile and terribly wet. Drainage ditches, levees, and canals became essential to cultivation. Without them, fields might flood, sour, or become impossible to cross. You feel the truth of that with every shovel lift. The ditchwater clouds around your legs. Something soft brushes your ankle beneath the surface. You freeze, then keep working because fear is not considered a useful schedule adjustment. The sun rises behind a curtain of pale mist. As light spreads, the world reveals itself in layers. Cypress trunks, cane rows, mule tracks, blackbirds lifting from reeds. The beauty is undeniable and deeply unfair. Soon insects become the morning's main citizens. Mosquitoes swarm around ears and wrists. Gnats gather near eyes. Horseflies land with cruel confidence. You slap one from your neck and leave a red smew. The overseer tells everyone to keep moving. His own hat brim is wide and his horse flicks its tail constantly. Even authority looks irritated by the weather. Your arms begin to tremble from shoveling. Mud is heavier than it looks. It clings to the blade, to your legs, to your thoughts. A woman farther down the ditch sings one line, then another. The tune is soft, almost hidden by insects. It helps set a pace that does not waste strength. Her voice carries through the moist air like thread. Some planters complained about singing during work, claiming it distracted labourers, yet work songs could coordinate movement, pass messages, and steady exhausted bodies. Their meanings were not always visible to those who feared them. Historians still debate how often songs contained coded communication, direct spiritual expression, or both at once. The answer may change from song to song, singer to singer, and danger to danger. You listen without asking. The ditch opens slowly. Water begins to move, sluggish at first, then with a faint trickle. The sound is small but satisfying, a secret victory beneath the morning heat. Then the group is moved again. Now you carry cane trash away from field edges. The stalk leaves and broken scraps must be piled or burned. Damp piles attract pests, snakes, and rot. You lift armfuls of wet leaves and feel them slice your skin. Their edges are dry enough to cut and wet enough to cling. Sweat runs into those tiny cuts and makes every movement sting. The smell changes when fires begin. Smoke rises from piles of cane trash, grey and bitter. It mixes with swamp vapour and hangs low over the ground. Your eyes water as you drag more leaves toward the burning heap. Ash settles on your sleeves. A little boy assigned to smaller tasks pokes at the fire with a stick. Sparks leap upward, and he steps back quickly. Someone tells him to stop courting trouble unless trouble brought dinner. A few quiet laughs pass through the group. Plantation humour is quick because it must be. By late morning, clouds gather without mercy. They do not cool the air, they only trap it closer. Thunder mutters somewhere beyond the tree line. Rain begins suddenly. At first, it is a soft tapping on cane leaves. Then it becomes a heavy sheet that flattens dust, fills tracks, and soaks every thread of clothing. The rain is warm enough to feel like bath water poured from heaven by someone careless. You keep working. There is no shelter for ordinary rain. Louisiana showers come and go, and the crop calendar does not bow politely to clouds. The field becomes slick within minutes. Mud climbs your legs. The rain brings out stronger smells. Wet cane, horse sweat, open ditch water, wood smoke beaten low by falling drops. The plantation becomes a bowl of odours, all stirred together beneath the storm. Lightning flashes white behind the clouds. For a few breaths, everyone seems made of silver. Then thunder rolls hard enough to make your chest vibrate. A mule brays from the road, startled by the sound. The overseer curses the sky as though the weather might apologise. It does not. A strange tidbit lives in this wet world. Some 19th century Louisianans believed certain swamp lights, flickering gases seen at night, were spirits or warnings. Science would explain much of it as marsh gas. But try telling that to someone walking alone past dark water. You imagine a pale flame hovering over the marsh. Honestly, you would respect it. The rain stops as suddenly as it came. Steam begins rising from the ground almost immediately. Your clothes cling harder. The sun breaks through, and the whole field turns into a hot, damp room without walls. Breathing feels like labour now. You're sent to help repair a low section of field path damaged by wagon wheels. Broken boards, brush, and packed earth are used to make the passage firm enough for carts. Nothing is permanent here except the need to patch everything. You carry bundles of brush that scratch your arms. Another worker spreads clay with a flat wooden tool. Someone else stamps it down with bare feet, pressing the path into shape. The clay is slick and cool underfoot. For one brief task, touch becomes almost pleasant. Then the sun burns the thought away. By afternoon, your head aches. Heat presses behind your eyes. Your tongue feels too large inside your mouth. When water comes, you drink too fast and your stomach twists. An older woman sees you swaying. She tells you to breathe through your nose and stand in the shade for 3 counts only. Not 4. 3 counts. She knows the mathematics of not being noticed. You step beneath the thin shade of a cane wagon and inhale slowly. The wood smells of sap, mud, and mule harness. Your pulse steadies just enough. Then you return. Heat exhaustion was not named the way people understand it now, yet everyone recognized collapse, dizziness, and feverish weakness. Enslaved workers developed practical strategies for surviving heat. Small pauses, cloth coverings, pacing, and shared warnings mattered. That knowledge rarely appeared in planter pride. The afternoon drags through layers of discomfort. Your skin itches from bites. Your feet slide inside wet shoes. Your shoulders ache from carrying, lifting, and bracing against mud. A snake appears near the ditch bank, slender and dark. It glides through grass with elegant indifference. Everyone nearby shifts away without shouting. Nobody wastes panic. The snake vanishes into reeds, leaving only trembling grass behind. Toward evening, the field smells cooked by heat and rain. Puddles reflect the sky in broken pieces. Mosquitoes multiply with festive enthusiasm, as though invited to a banquet. Lucky them, you are assigned one last round of water carrying. Buckets must be moved to a group still working near the cane rows. The handle digs into your fingers, already swollen and raw. Water sloshes against your knees. The path pulls at your shoes. Each step makes a soft sucking sound. At the row's end, a woman takes the bucket and nods once. Her gratitude is brief because thirst is urgent. She drinks, passes it on, and returns to cutting without ceremony. The sun lowers behind a veil of orange cloud. Light spills across flooded tracks and turns them copper. The beauty arrives again, entirely unwanted and impossible to ignore. You stand for 1 second too long. The overseer notices. A sharp command snaps you back into movement. Your body jerks before thought forms. That is how quickly this place trains obedience. As dusk settles, the quarters come into view through mist and smoke. Fires are being coaxed alive with damp wood. The smoke smells sharp, green, and stubborn. Your clothing remains wet. Your skin feels both chilled and overheated. Every bite mark burns. Near one cabin, someone has hung bunches of herbs from a beam. They release a bitter sesam, clean scent when touched. People hope the smell keeps insects away. The mosquitoes appear unconvinced. Still, hope can hang from rafters too. You sit near a small fire and warm your hands. Though the air is not cold, the flame gives comfort because it belongs to people, not planters. It crackles softly against the wet night. A woman presses mud from her skirt hem. A man empties water from his shoes. Someone jokes that tomorrow the field may ask for rent, since everyone has left half their feet in it. Soft laughter rises. You eat slowly, tasting smoke in everything. The food is simple, but your body receives it with gratitude. Hunger makes even rough cornmeal feel important. Night deepens over the plantation. From the swamp comes a chorus of frogs, insects, and unseen wings moving through leaves. The sound is endless, yet strangely soothing. It surrounds the cabins like a breathing wall. You lie down while the roof drips in several places. One drop lands near your ear at steady intervals. Another falls into a tin cup with a quiet ping. Your muscles twitch without permission. Mud dries along your ankles in cracking bands. Mosquito bites swell beneath your sleeves. The air smells of wet wood, tired bodies, and smoke curling through darkness. You finally understand that the climate is not background here. It is a force with hands, teeth, breath, and appetite. It works beside the overseer. It never sleeps. The cabin receives you like a tired animal, breathing smoke, warmth, and human closeness. You duck under the low doorway and enter a room where darkness is never quite empty. It holds whispers, restless sleep, and the faint scratching of small feet inside the walls. The floorboards flex beneath your weight. They are uneven, splintered, and polished only by years of bare heels. A thin pallet waits near the wall, stuffed with dry grass, moss, and whatever softness could be found. Softness is rare here. The air smells of ash, old cloth, cornmeal, and damp earth. A pot near the hearth gives off the lingering scent of beans. Wet garments hang from pegs, dripping slowly into shallow bowls placed underneath. Someone has tried to make order from very little. A woman kneels beside a child, rubbing grease into cracked skin along the child's arms. Her fingers move gently, though her face stays watchful. The child leans into the touch without speaking. Near the doorway, an older man repairs a wooden spoon with a small knife. The blade moves carefully through the grain. Each scrape releases a pale curl of wood that falls onto his knee. His hands know patience. You sit near the wall and notice how every object carries a second purpose. A broken barrel hoop becomes a hanger. A scrap of sackcloth becomes a curtain. A cracked bowl still holds salt if placed carefully. Nothing is simply thrown away. Plantation quarters varied widely, but many Louisiana cabins were cramped, poorly built, and vulnerable to weather. Enslaved families often had to create privacy, warmth, and dignity inside structures never designed for comfort. The walls might belong to the planter, but the interior arrangement spoke another language. You see that language in tiny details. A string of dried peppers hangs near the hearth. A folded cloth rests on a shelf above reach of children and rats. A smooth stone serves as a doorstop, grinding weight and silent companion. The room is not peaceful exactly. It is claimed. Outside, the quarters form a rough settlement, not merely a row of shelters. Paths curve between cabins. Fires burn low in front yards. Chickens scratch near ash piles. Quick and nervous. You smell smoke from several hearths, each slightly different. One carries the sweetness of sweet potatoes. Another smells sharp from green wood. A third holds the fatty scent of meat scraps cooking slowly. Voices move between cabins like low weather. People trade small news without raising volume. Someone asks about a swollen knee. Someone reports that a mule kicked loose from a rail. Someone mentions a child's fever, and the quiet around that detail changes. Care spreads quickly here. You're given a place beside the hearth while a woman stirs a small pot. She adds a handful of greens, then a pinch of something from a folded paper. The food is not abundant, but it is worked over with attention. That attention becomes its own seasoning. You feel the heat from the fire on your shins. Behind you, the wall leaks night air through narrow cracks. Warmth touches one side of your body, while dampness touches the other. Comfort arrives unevenly. A young man enters carrying 2 pieces of firewood under one arm. He places them near the hearth and shakes mud from his feet before stepping farther inside. His movements are careful, because space is shared by everyone. The cabin has rules no overseer wrote. Do not step on bedding. Do not waste flame. Do not speak too loudly when someone finally sleeps. Do not take the last piece without checking who needs it most. These rules hold a household together. A mainstream fact sits quietly beneath this scene. Enslaved people across the American South formed families and communities despite the legal system's refusal to honor those bonds securely. Marriage, kinship, parenting, and adoption existed through custom, faith, and mutual recognition, even when law denied protection. That makes the tenderness in this room feel both ordinary and heroic. A grandmother begins telling a story to 2 children near the wall. Her voice is low, almost smoky. She speaks of a clever rabbit who fools stronger creatures with patience, timing, and a face too innocent to trust. The children smile in the firelight. Trickster tales carried old roots and new meanings across enslaved communities. They entertained, taught caution, and honored clever survival under unequal power. A rabbit could become more than a rabbit when listeners knew how dangerous strength could be. The grandmother pauses at the best moment. Naturally, she enjoys this power. A child protests softly, and several adults laugh under their breath. The sound warms the room more gently than flame. Beyond the cabin door, another sound begins. Someone taps a rhythm on an overturned tub. It is quiet at first, then steadier. A second person answers with clapping, careful enough not to draw trouble. The rhythm travels through the wall. No one calls it a celebration. That would be too grand. It is simply a pulse, a reminder that bodies can move for reasons beyond command. A woman hums along while mending a torn sleeve. Her needle flashes in firelight. The thread is uneven, salvaged from another garment, but her stitches are tight and neat. You watch her work and understand that repair is constant. Clothing, tools, shoes, bodies, spirits. Everything frays here, and everything must be mended with too little time. The pot is passed around. You receive a small portion in a tin bowl warmed by many hands. Greens, beans, and bits of cornmeal thicken together. The flavour is smoky and bitter, with a faint pepper heat that blooms late. You eat slowly. A man near the doorway produces a tiny carved figure from his pocket. It is no larger than 2 fingers, shaped from dark wood and worn smooth by touch. He shows it briefly to a child, then tucks it away again. Such objects rarely appear in records. Historians still argue whether some personal items found near slave quarters were toys, charms, religious objects, or ordinary keepsakes. Sometimes one thing could serve many purposes, depending on who held it and when. The uncertainty feels right. Private meanings survive by staying private. Later, you step outside for air. The night is thick but slightly cooler away from the hearth. Smoke hangs between cabins in pale ribbons, glowing where it catches firelight. The ground is soft beneath your feet. You hear babies fussing, women murmuring, men sharpening tools, and a low cough that repeats too often. Somewhere a dog barks once, then decides the darkness is not worth arguing with. Above the quarters, the sky opens in scattered stars. They seem unusually bright beyond the smoke. You wonder how many eyes have looked upward from this yard, counting time by constellations rather than clocks. The plantation bell controls labour, but the sky keeps older measures. A woman stands near a fence rail, washing a shirt in a wooden tub. Her hands plunge and twist through cold water. Soap is scarce, so she scrubs with ash, effort, and stubborn intention. The cloth slaps the boards softly. She tells you laundry must be done when time appears, even if time only appears in scraps. Work for the plantation consumes the day. Work for life waits in the margins. Those margins are crowded. Children carry kindling. Someone patches a roof leak with bark and old cloth. A young girl rocks a baby while singing a tune nearly swallowed by insects. The quarters do not rest all at once. You return inside as the night deepens. The cabin has shifted into preparation for sleep. Bowls are stacked. Embers are banked. The door is pulled close, though it cannot truly seal the room. Heat collects again under the low roof. People settle onto pallets and blankets. Bodies arrange themselves with practiced care, leaving space for children, elders, and aching limbs. Privacy becomes a matter of turned shoulders and lowered voices. A couple speaks softly near the corner. Their words are too quiet to hear, and you look away. Even in a cramped cabin, dignity asks for witnesses to be gentle. The older man with the spoon sets it beside the hearth. It is not finished, but it is closer to useful. That seems to count as success. A rat skitters somewhere overhead. Nobody screams. Someone throws a small piece of wood toward the sound, and the creature retreats. The room settles again with weary acceptance. A quirky little belief passes through the darkness. One woman says rats dislike certain charms made from strong-smelling herbs tied in cloth. Another says rats dislike nothing except empty rooms. A third mutters that rats probably own half the parish. Quiet laughter follows. The humour does not erase the worry. Rats spoil food, spread filth, and steal from people who already have almost nothing. Protecting a little cornmeal becomes a nightly contest of patience and luck. You lie down and feel the pallet's uneven stuffing beneath your ribs. It smells faintly of grass, smoke, and old sweat. The wall beside your face is cool from night dampness. Through a crack, you see one thin stripe of moonlight. The room breathes around you. Someone sighs. Someone whispers a prayer. A child turns in sleep and kicks lightly against another body. These sounds make the cabin feel alive. You begin to understand that the quarters hold more than exhaustion. They hold memory, argument, tenderness, discipline, invention, sorrow, and jokes sharp enough to cut through fear. They are crowded with everything the plantation tries to reduce and cannot. Outside, the distant house stands lit beyond the dark fields. Its brightness seems less impressive now. It has columns, silver mirrors, and polished floors. But this cabin has the harder miracle. People care for one another here. That care is not sentimental. It is practical, alert, sometimes impatient, and deeply skilled. It knows fevers, hunger, torn cloth, frightened children, and the value of one extra spoonful. The embers sink lower in the hearth. Smoke thins into a soft blue smell. Insects sing through the cracks. The cabin settles, board by board, into uneasy sleep. You close your eyes and feel the nearness of others, not as comfort alone, but as survival arranged in human form. The boiling house announces itself before you reach the door, breathing heat into the yard like a furnace with lungs. Long before sunrise has fully lifted, its chimney stains the sky with black smoke. Sparks rise, vanish, and rise again. You smell it from far away. The scent is sweet at first, almost pleasant, like syrup warming in a kitchen. Then it thickens into something harsher: burnt sugar, wet wood, ash, sweat, hot iron, and sour cane juice gather together in the throat. Your stomach cannot decide whether to hunger or turn away. The building stands near the mill, rough and practical, with wide openings for air that never seems enough. Inside, shadows jump against beams as fires roar beneath great iron kettles. Steam rolls through the room in heavy white clouds. The heat strikes your face instantly. It feels personal. Your skin tightens. Your eyes water. Sweat appears along your temples before you have taken 3 steps inside. The floor is sticky in places, slick in others, and dusted with ash where workers have moved too quickly. A man points towards stacked cane waiting near the crushing rollers. You hear machinery grinding nearby, wood and iron complaining together. The rollers pull stalks inward and squeeze them until juice runs pale and cloudy into channels. The crushed cane comes out flattened, fibrous, and spent. Workers feed the machine carefully, keeping hands away from the mouth of the rollers. Nobody needs a sermon about danger here. The machine explains itself with every turn. Sugar production in Louisiana relied on rapid processing during grinding season. Cane juice had to be clarified, boiled, skimmed, reduced, and eventually crystallized before it spoiled. That urgency turned the boiling house into a place of extreme pressure, especially when harvest was heavy. You stand beside a tub of fresh cane juice and watch foam gather on top. It smells green, sweet, and faintly rotten. The liquid looks innocent enough, which is rude considering the trouble it causes. A worker tells you to carry firewood, so you carry firewood. The logs are rough against your arms and leave flakes of bark sticking to sweat. You stack them near the furnaces where men shovel fuel into hungry openings beneath the kettles. Firelight paints their faces copper and black. The roar below the kettles is constant. Each kettle holds juice at a different stage. In the first, it is thin and foaming. In another, it darkens and thickens. Farther along, it becomes syrupy and dangerous, bubbling slowly with a sound like mud thinking evil thoughts. Men and women move between them with ladles, skimmers, and long paddles. They skim impurities from the surface, transfer liquid, judge texture, and watch for disaster. There is no lazy corner in this room. You're handed a long-handled tool and shown how to skim foam from one kettle's surface. The handle grows hot even far from the metal. Steam rises into your face, damp and scalding, carrying sweetness so intense it feels almost violent. You lean over too close once. The heat bites your cheeks. A sharp voice warns you back. Not kindly, but quickly enough to help. You adjust your stance and continue. The foam slides into a waiting bucket, pale brown and sticky. Your hands ache from gripping the handle. The floor vibrates faintly with the movement of the mill. Outside, mules circle or machinery turns depending on the plantation setup. Inside, everything depends on timing, fuel, judgment, and bodies that cannot falter. An experienced sugar maker watches the syrup with calm intensity. He studies colour, bubbles, smell, and movement. Though planters often claimed mastery in public, much technical knowledge rested with enslaved workers who understood the process through daily practice. That knowledge could not be replaced by a fine waistcoat. The sugar maker lifts a little syrup and lets it fall back from a spoon. A thin thread forms, breaks, and disappears. He nods once, and workers shift immediately. You notice how everyone trusts that nod. A quirky detail sits near the edge of the work. Some sugar makers judged readiness by a syrup's behaviour between thumb and finger, stretching a drop into threads when it cooled slightly. It sounds almost delicate until you remember the drop could burn skin badly. Science wears rough clothes here. The fires demand more wood. You drag another armful across the sticky floor and feel your shoes catch with each step. Your shirt clings to your back. Your breathing grows shallow because the air feels cooked. Outside air becomes a dream. A boy carries buckets of water toward the doorway for workers to drink and rinse tools. His face shines with sweat. He moves quickly, careful not to spill, careful not to block anyone older, careful not to become a problem. Careful is a language children learn early. You drink when permitted. The water tastes smoky from the vessel and warm from the room. Still, it moves down your throat like mercy. Then steam hides half the room. For several moments, the figures around you become shadows. You hear coughs, footfalls, metal scraping kettle rims, and the low command of the sugar maker. The room seems to float inside its own weather. This weather is man-made and cruel. Someone opens a shutter wider. A faint breeze enters, but it merely moves the heat around, like stirring soup. The smoke shifts and reveals faces slick with exhaustion. During grinding season, some boiling houses operated late into the night because stopping the process could ruin valuable cane juice. Sleep became fragmented, labour rotated, and danger increased as fatigue deepened. Historians still debate whether the harshest accounts reflect ordinary practice everywhere, or the worst moments of a particularly brutal industry. The room does not feel interested in academic caution. It feels brutal enough. You are sent to help move empty hogsheads, large wooden barrels used for sugar. They stand taller than your waist and smell of wood, molasses, and damp storage. Rolling them requires balance because one slip can crush a foot. The barrel thumps across the floor. A man beside you mutters that barrels behave better than overseers, but only because barrels lack imagination. You almost laugh, then catch yourself. The sound would be dangerous in the wrong ear. Still, the joke stays with you. The finished syrup eventually moves towards cooling and crystallization. Brown crystals will form, and molasses will drain away slowly. The result may travel to New Orleans, then outward into trade networks where buyers admire sweetness without hearing this building breathe. You imagine a teacup in a quiet parlour. A spoon stirs. Here, a woman's arm trembles as she lifts the skimmer again. The contrast settles heavily. By midday, your head pounds from heat and noise. Your skin feels coated in syrup, ash, and salt. Every breath tastes faintly sweet, as if sugar has entered the lungs and set up housekeeping. A fly lands on your cheek. You are too tired to slap it. Then a shout tears across the room. A small spill is slopped from the edge of a kettle onto the floor, splashing near a worker's leg. People move quickly, not wildly, because panic wastes seconds. Someone drags the injured worker back while another throws sand and ash over the slick patch. The smell of burnt sugar sharpens. The worker clenches his jaw and says little. A cloth is wrapped around the burn. There is no long pause, no gentle recovery, no soft bed waiting nearby. The room keeps moving. That may be the most frightening thing, not danger itself, but danger swallowed by routine. You return to skimming with unsteady hands. The long handle feels heavier now. Steam blurs your vision, and each bubbling kettle looks like a dark eye opening and closing. A woman across from you catches your fear. She does not comfort you. Instead, she taps her foot in a steady rhythm and motions for you to match it. Breathe with the work. Lift, skim, turn, empty. Again, your body follows because it has no better idea. The rhythm steadies your hands. The room remains unbearable. but not impossible for the next few moments. That is survival here, reduced to moments. Afternoon light slants through the openings, carrying dust and smoke in golden shafts. The boiling house becomes almost beautiful in a terrible way. Copper light flashes on wet tools, steam glows white, syrup bubbles like dark amber. Beauty has poor manners. It shows up anywhere. You're given a brief task outside, and the open air feels astonishing. Even humid Louisiana heat seems cool compared with the boiling house. You inhale greedily beside a stack of crushed cane fibre. The spent cane, called bagasse, lies in pale, shredded heaps. Some plantations dried it and used it as fuel, though wetness made that difficult. The pile smells grassy, sour, and faintly fermented. Flies love it. Naturally, they throw a banquet. You wipe your face with your sleeve and leave a streak of soot across your cheek. A worker nearby grins and says you look like you have argued with a chimney and lost. You would answer, but breath feels valuable. Then you're sent back inside. The heat welcomes you like a debt collector. As evening approaches, the pace does not soften. Fires must be fed. Juice must be watched. Syrup must be shifted at the right moment. The boiling house seems to exist outside ordinary time, ruled only by heat, sweetness, and urgency. The plantation bell means less here than the kettles. A man near the furnace sings under his breath. The tune is low and slow, shaped to fit between shovels of wood. It sounds less like music than a rope thrown across exhaustion. Others pick it up in fragments. No one sings loudly. The song moves through steam, almost hidden. It is there, then gone, then there again, like a pulse under skin. Night gathers outside while the room grows brighter from fire. Shadows sharpen against the walls. Faces become masks of red light and darkness. Your arms feel hollow. Your knees tremble whenever you stand still. Syrup has dried on your wrist into a tight brown glaze. When you flex your hand, it cracks. Finally, you're dismissed from the building, though others remain inside. Their silhouettes continue moving among the kettles. The chimney keeps breathing sparks into the night. You step into cooler darkness and hear frogs beyond the yard. The sound seems impossibly gentle. Smoke drifts upward, mixing with stars. Your clothes carry the boiling house with them, burnt sugar, ash, sweat, fear. Near the quarters, you pause and look back at the glowing doorway. It resembles the mouth of some ancient creature, fed by cane, wood, and human endurance. People far away will taste sweetness. They will not taste this. You walk on with sticky hands, sore lungs, and a strange heaviness in your chest. The work inside that building has shown you how luxury can be manufactured from exhaustion. The night air touches your face. For once, it feels almost kind. Morning hunger wakes before the bell, curling inside your stomach like a small restless creature. You lie still for a moment, listening to soft breathing around the cabin. Someone shifts on a pallet, and dry grass whispers beneath worn cloth. The room smells of ashes, damp blankets, and yesterday's food scraped from iron. Your mouth tastes smoky and sour. Even before work begins, your body is already asking impossible questions. How much strength can a thin meal buy? Outside, the cooking fires are being coaxed from embers. A woman bends close and blows gently until a red glow spreads beneath grey ash. Smoke rises, curls around her face, and drifts into the pale morning. You hear the scrape of a wooden spoon against a pot. Cornmeal thickens in water, becoming mush that will have to stand between people and the day. The smell is plain, warm, and faintly toasted. Nobody romanticizes breakfast here. A ration might include cornmeal, salted pork, molasses, peas, or rice, depending on the plantation and season. Planters often measured food by cost, not comfort. Enslaved people filled the gaps through gardens, hunting, fishing, trading, and careful sharing. You receive a bowl and hold it with both hands. Heat seeps into your palms. The mush is thick, slightly gritty, and smoky from the pot. A small spoonful of molasses darkens one edge. It tastes sweet, almost floral, then bitter beneath. You swallow slowly, trying to trick your body into believing more is coming. Your body is not fooled. Nearby, a man unwraps a strip of salted pork. It is mostly fat, stiff from preservation, and sharp with salt. He cuts it into small pieces with a pocket knife, making it stretch among 3 people. The knife moves with ceremony. Food here is not simply eaten, it is divided, hidden, saved, traded, stretched, and remembered. Every bite carries calculation. You are sent first to help grind corn in a small hand mill near the quarters. The handle turns stiffly. Kernels crack between stones with a gritty crunch that vibrates through your wrists. The work is slower than expected. A woman supervising the task watches the meal fall into a cloth. She knows by touch whether it is too coarse. She shakes her head when you rush, then guides your hand into a steadier circle. Good meal needs patience. The irony is nearly funny since patience is not exactly abundant here. Children pick through dried beans beside the doorway, removing stones and bad pieces. Their small fingers move quickly. One child slips a good bean into his mouth and earns a look so sharp he puts it back, damp and guilty. No one laughs at hunger too loudly. A quirky little practice appears near the cooking area. Someone keeps a hollow gourd filled with pepper vinegar, made by soaking hot peppers until the liquid bites the tongue. A few drops can wake up dull food and make thin greens feel more alive. You try one drop. Your eyes water at once. The woman beside you nods with satisfaction, as though the pepper has introduced itself properly. It is fierce, rude, and very useful. After the meal work, you follow a path behind the cabins toward small garden plots. These patches are not grand. They are irregular, fenced with sticks, and carved from whatever time people could steal from exhaustion. Yet they feel precious immediately. Sweet potato vines spread low across the soil. Collard greens stand dusty and green. Onion tops lean in soft rows. Herbs grow near the edges where feet are less likely to crush them. The earth smells warmer here. You kneel and pull weeds from around the plants. The soil is damp beneath the surface, cool against your fingers. For a few moments, touching the ground does not feel like punishment. A woman tells you which weeds to spare. Some can be cooked. Some soothe the stomach. Some only pretend to be useful, which makes them like certain rich men. She says this without smiling. That makes it better. Enslaved people's gardens mattered deeply across plantation societies. They provided extra food, ingredients for healing, and sometimes goods to sell or trade. These plots also gave people limited control over land, time, and nourishment under violent restriction. You can feel that control in the careful rows. A man arrives carrying a string of small fish caught before dawn. They are silver, limp, and muddy-smelling. He traded a repair job for the right to borrow a line and fish near a drainage canal. The fish are admired like treasure. Someone cleans them with quick strokes over a basin. Scales cling to wet fingers and shine in morning light. The smell is sharp, riverine, and alive. Nothing will be wasted. Heads and bones may flavour broth. Flesh may be fried, stewed, or shared with someone sick. Even the cleaning water is carried away from the cabin to keep flies down. You help gather kindling for a cooking fire. Twigs snap under your hands. Damp wood smokes more than it burns, making everyone's eyes sting. The fire finally catches. A pan is set over coals, and a little fat melts with a soft hiss. The fish go in, curling at the edges as their skin crisps. The smell rises rich and sudden, drawing children closer. Someone waves them back with a spoon. Food creates gravity. By midday, plantation labour pulls you away from the garden plots. You carry rations from a storage shed toward a work group near the fields. The shed smells of grain, salt, old barrels, and mouse droppings. An overseer watches the rationing closely. His ledger rests against a crate. Names and amounts are marked in columns, as if neat ink can transform scarcity into fairness. It cannot. You lift a sack of cornmeal onto your shoulder. The coarse fabric scratches your neck. Dust escapes from a seam and clings to your sweaty skin. Each ration has weight, but never enough promise. Historians still argue whether ration allowances on many plantations were mainly designed to maintain health, minimize cost, prevent theft, or signal control. In practice, those motives could overlap unpleasantly. A hungry worker was expensive, but a well-fed worker was apparently too generous for some consciences. The sack grows heavier as you walk. At the field edge, people receive portions without ceremony. One woman checks her share with her eyes, then folds it into cloth. She does not complain, though her jaw tightens. A man quietly trades a little tobacco for extra cornmeal. The exchange happens behind a cartwheel. Quick and practiced. Nobody announces it. Small economies live in shadows. In Louisiana, enslaved people sometimes sold produce, poultry, eggs, fish, or handmade goods in local markets when permitted. Rules varied by plantation, owner, season, and suspicion. These exchanges offered limited opportunity, but also exposed people to surveillance and theft. You hear about Market Day in whispers. New Orleans is spoken of almost like another planet, a place of crowds, languages, bells, carts, ships, free people of colour, enslaved labourers, merchants, sailors, and temptations. Goods move there, and so do rumours. A woman says you can smell the city before you see it. Coffee, river mud, oranges, fish, horses, perfume, and trouble. She sounds almost fond. In the late afternoon, you help prepare a simple meal near the quarters. The garden greens are washed in a wooden tub. Dirt sinks to the bottom while leaves float dark and glossy. Your fingers wrinkle in the water. A child brings sweet potatoes from a small pit where they were stored in dry grass. Their skins are rough and earthy. When sliced open, the flesh glows orange, cheerful in a way that feels almost disrespectful to misery. They are tucked into ashes to roast. Soon their smell softens the whole yard. Sweet potatoes are patient food. They cook slowly, hold warmth, and fill the stomach better than many things. People watch the ash bed with the seriousness of bankers guarding gold. The fish are divided into small portions. Greens simmer with pepper vinegar and a scrap of meat. Cornbread bakes in a covered pan nestled among coals. Every pot has a watcher. Food requires guarding from animals, insects, hunger, and interruption. A dog lurks near the edge of firelight with theatrical innocence. Chickens drift closer, pretending they have official business. Nobody believes them. The dog eventually receives a thrown bone and retreats with dignity. As evening settles, the meal becomes a gathering point. People sit near cabins, bowls balanced on knees, shoulders loosening by a fraction. Firelight brightens cheekbones and tired eyes. You take your portion carefully. Greens, a piece of sweet potato, a small bite of fish, and cornbread warm from ash. The flavours are simple, but they unfold slowly. Smoky, bitter, sweet, salty, hot. Your body accepts them with almost painful gratitude. Conversation begins once first hunger eases. Someone compares this year's potatoes with a better crop from years ago. Someone else insists that raccoon tastes fine if cooked correctly, and if one does not think too much about raccoon. That condition seems important. A woman describes trapping rabbits with loops of cord hidden along brush paths. Her hands shape the method in the air. Another person warns that traps must be checked early, before birds, dogs, or greedy neighbours discover ambition. There is gentle accusation in that final phrase. A man protests his innocence with great dignity. Everyone knows he's lying. For once, the laughter comes easier. This is not abundance. It is skill under pressure. You notice how knowledge gathers around food, where fish hide after rain, which herbs sweeten a cough, how to hide eggs from both rats and overseers, how to stretch cornmeal without angering the pot. These lessons form a quiet curriculum. No classroom needed. You also notice who eats last. Mothers break portions for children. Elders are watched without being embarrassed. A sick man receives broth thickened with meal, carried to him by a girl with careful steps. Care moves through bowls. The plantation system tries to reduce food to ration and labour fuel. The quarters turn it into relationship, memory, bargaining. healing, and brief pleasure. That transformation is small, but it is not nothing. Night settles darker around the fires. The smell of roasting peel, wood smoke, and peppered greens clings to your clothes. Crickets begin their steady music. Somewhere beyond the cabins, a mule knocks against a rail. You scrape the last bit from your bowl with cornbread. The taste of ash and sweetness lingers on your tongue. Your stomach is not full, but it is quieter. That quiet feels luxurious. A woman sets aside 3 small sweet potatoes in a cloth. She says they are for tomorrow, then places them where children can see and remember not to touch. Trust and warning share the same gesture. You understand, hunger does not vanish at bedtime. It lies down beside you, softer for now, but still awake. It listens with you to the insects, the breathing, and the faint settling of the cabin walls. Your hands smell of soil, fish, smoke, and pepper. You close your eyes with the taste of sweet potato still behind your teeth. For a little while, survival has flavour. The plantation road looks harmless in early light, just a pale strip of packed earth between fields. Dew shines along the grass. Birds call from the tree line. For a few breaths. The morning almost pretends to be gentle. Then you notice who is watching. A rider waits near the bend, still as a fence post. Another man stands beside the storehouse with arms folded. Near the quarters, a boy too young for field labour carries messages with quick, nervous steps. The whole place has eyes. You learn that surveillance is not always loud. Sometimes it's a glance from horseback. Sometimes it's a locked shed, a counted tool, a pass demanded on a road, or a question asked too casually. Every path has meaning. The yard smells of wet dust, mule sweat, and smoke from breakfast fires. People move with the careful speed of those who understand being observed. A laugh stops sooner than it wants to. A conversation bends away from danger. You're sent to carry tools from a shed near the overseer's office. The door opens with a hard scrape. Inside, hose, knives, chains, harness parts, and spare handles hang in ordered rows. Order can be threatening. The overseer counts each tool aloud before handing it over. His finger moves down a list. The paper rustles softly, but the sound feels sharper than metal. A missing tool would become more than a missing tool. It would become suspicion. Suspicion grows quickly here. Like mould in damp weather, slave patrols operated across much of the South, including Louisiana, to police the movement of enslaved people. Pass systems, road checks, and nighttime patrols restricted travel and punished those found away without permission. Control did not end at the plantation boundary. You feel that boundary even without a fence. The fields stretch open, but freedom is not measured by distance alone. A road can lead somewhere and still be a trap. A river can carry boats and still refuse escape. You walk beside workers heading toward the cane rows. No one speaks much. The overseer rides behind at a slow pace, letting the horse's hooves announce his presence. Clop, suck, clop. The mud answers every step. At the field edge, groups are assigned tasks. Names are called, and the sound of each name hangs briefly in the air. A name should belong to the person who carries it, but here it is also a mark in someone else's book. You grip your hoe and lower your eyes. The work begins with weeding between cane rows. The soil is heavy from rain, and weeds cling stubbornly to their place. You chop, pull, shake dirt from roots, and toss them aside. The sun climbs. The overseer watches from the turn row. He does not need to strike anyone to shape the pace. His gaze moves across backs, hands, bent necks, and pauses measured too closely. Your shoulders tighten beneath it. A woman near you works steadily, then drops a weed bundle slightly behind the line. Her hand brushes the ground. When she rises, something small disappears into her sleeve. You almost miss it. Perhaps it was a seed, perhaps a scrap of food, perhaps nothing at all. The point is that you do not ask. Secrecy protects both speaker and listener. A quirky detail lingers around plantation discipline. Some owners wrote long, moral-sounding rules about order and obedience, as though paperwork made coercion respectable. They use the language of household management while building systems of fear. Very tidy cruelty. At mid-morning, some stranger arrives on horseback. He wears clean gloves and carries himself like a man expecting doors to open. Work slows almost invisibly as people register his presence. The overseer greets him near the road. You cannot hear the full conversation, only fragments. Sale, debt, inspection, weather, hands. The word hands lands badly, because everyone knows it means people. A cold feeling moves through you. Plantation slavery made family separation a constant threat. Enslaved people could be sold, mortgaged, hired out, inherited, or moved for economic reasons. Even rumour could unsettle an entire community. The stranger looks across the field the way buyers inspect animals. His eyes pause on strong shoulders, young backs, and steady movement. Nobody tells him to stop. The cane leaves whisper in the heat. A young mother working farther down glances toward the quarters, where her child is likely being watched by another woman. Her face changes for less than a second. Then it becomes still again. That stillness is learned. Historians still debate how often enslaved people received advance warning of sale or transfer, since planters' records often hide emotional reality behind business language. Some people heard rumours early. Others learned only when the wagon stood ready. The uncertainty makes every unknown rider terrifying. The stranger eventually leaves. The field exhales, but only slightly. Fear does not depart at the same speed as a horse. Work continues. By noon, heat presses hard across the rows. You're allowed water, then a short pause under thin shade. People sit in small clusters, but conversations remain low. A man draws lines in the dirt with a twig. At first, it looks idle. Then you see the lines form a rough map of ditches, paths, tree stands, and cabins. He wipes it away with his heel when footsteps approach. Your breath catches. Maps are powerful things. They turn memory into direction. They make the watched world slightly more readable. No one mentions it. A girl brings a message from the quarters. She speaks to one woman only, then runs back with her skirt lifted from the mud. Her bare feet make almost no sound. Children can move through spaces adults cannot. They hear scraps, carry warnings, learn notice moods, and vanish beneath notice when luck is kind. Childhood here is dangerous, but it can also make small messengers of the quick and clever. In the afternoon, you're sent with others to repair fencing near a pasture. The fence marks animals, not people, yet it still feels symbolic in the worst way. Rails are split, dragged, lifted, and wedged into place. The wood is rough against your palms. A driver watches nearby. Less formal than the overseer, but no less alert. Drivers were often enslaved men placed in positions of authority over other enslaved workers. Their roles could be complicated, pressured, resented, and sometimes used to protect people when possible. Power here does not sit cleanly in one place. The driver tells you to lift from the knees. His tone is sharp enough for anyone listening, but his eyes show practical concern. You obey and avoid straining your back. A performance can hide kindness. As you work, two men discuss weather in voices just loud enough to be boring. Rain may come, roads may flood, the river is high. Anyone nearby would hear nothing but ordinary talk, yet their hands move strangely. One taps twice on a rail, the other pauses before answering. You cannot read the code, if code it is. You are not supposed to. Enslaved communities developed many ways to communicate under surveillance, including indirect speech, song, gesture, and carefully timed silence. Not every gesture was secret, of course. Suspicion itself can invent meanings where none exist. That is another cruelty. When everyone is watched, even innocence feels guilty. Later, the overseer orders a search near one cabin. The reason is unclear. A missing tool, perhaps a rumour, a mood. Men enter while the family stands outside, faces blank and rigid. You hear bedding dragged aside, pots clatter. A child begins to cry, then is hushed quickly. The sound of belongings being handled by hostile hands seems almost indecent. The search reveals nothing obvious. Still, damage has been done. A woman gathers her scattered things after the men leave. She folds a blanket with slow precision. Her face remains expressionless, but her fingers tremble once. You want to help. You do not know whether helping would make things worse. This is how surveillance spreads. It forces people to calculate every kindness. It teaches caution even around compassion. The sun lowers, but the watched feeling remains. Shadows lengthen across the yard. Smoke rises from cooking fires, and ordinary evening work begins. Ordinary does not mean safe, near the well. A man asks quietly whether anyone saw the patrol road after dark. Another replies that the dogs were restless near the southern trees. Their words are folded inside talk about buckets and rope. You pull water while pretending not to listen. The rope is rough and damp against your hands. The bucket rises slowly, dripping cold water back into the well. Its splash echoes from below like a voice in a stone throat. Water smells clean compared with the yard. A patrol horn sounds faintly beyond the plantation boundary. Maybe it is a hunter. Maybe it is not. People look up for the shortest possible moment, then return to their tasks. Fear has etiquette. After supper, the quarters grow quieter than usual. Conversations happen indoors, under breath, near hearths where smoke can cover whispers. A dog barks toward the road and is called back sharply. Someone checks the door latch. The cabin feels smaller when danger presses around it. The walls seem thinner. Every outside sound becomes a question. Footsteps pass at a distance. Everyone inside freezes without being told. The fire pops once too loudly. A child's eyes widen in the dark. The footsteps fade. Breathing resumes in pieces. An older woman begins humming softly. Not quite a song, more like a thread of sound to steady the room. Her voice has no sharp edges. It gives people something safer to hear than their own fear. Your shoulders slowly lower. You notice a small pouch tucked into a roof gap above the hearth. It is wrapped in cloth and tied with string. You do not ask what is inside. Maybe herbs, maybe coins, maybe a memory, maybe all three. The cabin's hidden places matter. Loose boards, roof cracks, buried jars, hollow gourds, and fence posts can hold tiny treasures. When ownership is denied, hiding becomes a form of keeping. The night air smells of smoke and wet grass. Beyond the walls, insects sing with maddening confidence, completely uninterested in human lore. Lucky insects! You lie down, but sleep keeps away. The plantation has entered your senses as a network of warnings, hoofbeats, paper lists, pauses in speech, dogs, lanterns, locked doors. Even silence has weight. You understand now that discipline is not only the visible punishment everyone fears, it is the anticipation of punishment. It is the way people lower voices before danger appears. It is the careful folding of emotion into a face no one can read. The cabin settles around you. Someone shifts near the door. Someone whispers a prayer so softly it becomes breath. Outside, a rider passes once along the road, then disappears into thick dark. You stare into the roof shadows and feel the truth pressing down. On this plantation, being watched is another kind of labour. Sunday arrives without trumpets, without softness, and without anyone believing it belongs fully to them. The bell still sounds, but its command feels different. Work does not vanish. It loosens its grip by a few fingers. You wake to a grey morning and the smell of damp ashes. The cabin is quieter than usual, though not peaceful. People rise more slowly, testing sore backs, swollen hands, and knees that complain before feet touch the floor. Outside, mist rests low over the yard. Cooking fires are coaxed awake while roosters shout their usual foolish opinions. Children move between cabins with bowls, rags, and bundles of kindling. Someone laughs softly when one rooster attacks its own shadow near a puddle. The rooster loses bravely. A partial rest day on many plantations still carried chores: cooking, washing, repairs, gardening, and religious gatherings. Enslaved people often use Sunday for the labour that sustained their own households. Rest, here, means time reclaimed from the edges. You carry water from the well while the rope creaks against the wooden frame. The bucket rises heavy and cold. Drops fall back into darkness with hollow little sounds. The water smells faintly mineral and clean. A woman washes a child's face with determined tenderness. The child squirms, pretending soap is a personal tragedy. She tells him dirt will not carry him to heaven any faster. He considers this argument with suspicion. Nearby, men repair tools under a tree. One replaces a hoe handle, shaving wood carefully with a small blade. Another patches a harness strap with thread thickened by wax. The shade smells of leather sap and smoke. You sit for a while near the garden plots, pulling weeds around sweet potato vines. The work is slower today, almost thoughtful. Bees move among small flowers with golden legs dusted in pollen. Your fingers sink into cool soil. There is a gentleness in tending something meant to feed your own people. The plants do not shout, they do not count your motions. They simply ask for water, space, and patience. Patience is easier with a plant. By mid-morning, washing begins in earnest. Clothes are soaked, beaten, scrubbed, wrung, and spread across bushes or fence rails. The air fills with the wet slap of cloth against boards. Ash soap stings the hands. Steam rises from a pot where garments are boiled. The smell is sharp and alkaline, mixed with sweat lifted from old fabric. Cleanliness is never simple when water, soap, and time are all limited. A woman inspects a shirt against the light. A stain remains, faint but stubborn. She frowns as though the cloth has insulted her family line. Then she scrubs again. Clothing matters here more than outsiders might imagine. A mended sleeve, a clean head wrap, or a carefully saved ribbon can express dignity in a world eager to deny it. The body may be forced into labour, but presentation still carries meaning. You notice bright cloth tied around one woman's hair. It is faded red, but arranged beautifully. She moves with tired grace, and the colour seems to hold sunlight. Small beauty survives. Around midday, people begin preparing for worship. Not everyone goes. Some are too tired, too wary, or needed elsewhere. But a group gathers near a cabin set back from the main path. The meeting is quiet at first. A man opens with prayer, his voice low and steady. People bow heads, some close eyes. Others keep watch toward the road, because devotion does not cancel caution. The air smells of pine smoke and damp grass. Religion among enslaved communities in Louisiana could include African spiritual inheritances, Catholic influences, Protestant preaching, and local practices woven together in complex ways. Planters sometimes encouraged controlled worship, yet feared gatherings they could not fully supervise. Faith has a way of slipping past fences. A hymn begins softly. The melody moves slowly, rising and falling like breath. Voices join one by one until the sound becomes fuller, though still careful. You feel it in your ribs. The words speak of sorrow, endurance, crossing over, and a home beyond reach. They carry religious meaning, but also earthly ache. People know how to sing two truths at once. Historians still argue how often spiritual songs directly encoded escape plans, compared with expressing hope, grief, faith, and communal strength. The safer answer is that songs could do many things. A song can hide more than one road. The hymn ends, leaving a silence that feels alive. An older woman speaks next. She does not stand on ceremony. Her voice is rough from years of smoke and work, but it holds everyone easily. She talks about patience without praising suffering. She talks about Moses without needing to explain why bondage matters. She talks about the proud being brought low, which seems to please several listeners quietly. A baby fusses and is rocked against a shoulder. A dog wanders near the meeting and sits down as though converted. Nobody objects until it begins scratching loudly. Then a boy gently drags it away by the collar. Even holiness has limits. After worship, the yard becomes livelier. People visit between cabins, sharing news, remedies, and gossip. Gossip may sound small, but it maps the world. Who's sick? Who is angry? Who may be sold? Which overseer drank too much? Which horse is lame? Which neighbour has fish to trade? Information feeds survival. You're drawn toward a group repairing shoes. The smell of old leather, grease, and damp thread hangs close around them. One man punches holes with a heated awl, then pulls cord through with slow strength. Shoes are precious. A bad shoe can ruin a foot. A ruined foot can bring punishment, sickness, hunger, or sale. So a sole patched crookedly is still a kind of protection. You hold a shoe while he works. The leather is stiff and cracked. He tells you it belonged to 3 people already and may yet outlive everybody present. That is not comforting, but it is funny enough. Nearby, children play a game with stones in the dirt. Their rules are complicated, disputed, and apparently rewritten whenever someone loses. Small hands flash through dust. Voices rise, fall, and burst into laughter. For once, their movement belongs mostly to themselves. A girl draws a shape in the dirt that might be a house, a boat, or a dream refusing clear identity. She erases it quickly when an adult passes too close, then redraws it smaller. Children learn caution even while playing. In the afternoon, a small trade circle forms near the shade. Someone offers eggs wrapped in cloth. Another has dried herbs. A man displays a carved comb, smooth and careful, made during stolen minutes. You touch the comb's teeth lightly. They are even polished and finer than expected. The maker shrugs when praised, pretending indifference. His eyes betray pride. Craft survives alongside labour. Some enslaved artisans developed remarkable skills as carpenters, blacksmiths, cooks, coopers, seamstresses, healers, and musicians. Their skills could be exploited by owners, but also strengthened community life and sometimes allowed limited bargaining power. The comb passes from hand to hand. A woman trades peppers and a little thread for it. She tucks it into her sleeve with a satisfaction that looks almost royal. Later, music begins again, more openly than the night rhythms. A fiddle appears from somewhere, battered but loved. Its varnish is worn thin where hands have held it. The first notes are scratchy, then the tune steadies. Feet begin tapping, hands clap softly. A few people move into a ring, shoulders loose, eyes bright. The dance remains restrained enough to avoid danger, yet alive enough to change the air. Dust rises beneath careful steps. The fiddle carries sadness and mischief together. It sounds like someone telling grief it may sit down, but not own the whole bench. That feels reasonable. You watch as an older man dances briefly, light on his feet despite stiff joints. Cheers rise softly around him. He bows with enormous dignity, as if performing for a palace. In this yard, perhaps he is, a quirky tidbit hides inside plantation music. Some enslaved musicians were hired out to play for white dances, learning reels and cotillions while reshaping music in their own communities. Tunes travelled strangely, wearing different meanings depending on who held the bow. A melody can cross a room and change sides. The music fades when someone signals that a rider is on the road. The fiddle disappears with impressive speed. People shift into ordinary tasks. The rider passes without stopping. Conversation resumes, but softer. As evening approaches, Sunday's borrowed time begins thinning. Tools are gathered. Clothes are taken from fences before damp night air claims them again. Food is prepared with special care because Monday waits like an unpaid debt. You help peel sweet potatoes with a dull knife. The skins fall in rough curls. Your hands smell earthy and sweet. A pot of greens simmers nearby, dark and fragrant. Pepper vinegar sharpens the steam. Cornbread browns beneath an iron lid covered with coals. The meal feels almost festive. Someone has saved a little coffee, or something pretending bravely to be coffee. It is roasted dark, stretched thin, and passed in a cup between adults. The taste is bitter, smoky, and magnificent by local standards. People sip as if attending court. A man tells a story about a traveller who tried to outwit a ferryman and ended up carrying his own baggage twice. The tale winds slowly, gathering absurd details. By the end, even the quietest listeners smile. Storytelling fills the spaces that records leave empty. You notice how voices shift with different tales. Some become playful, some grave, some musical. The storyteller's hands draw roads, rivers, fools, animals, and proud men falling into mud. Everyone enjoys that last part. Night gathers gently at first. The sky turns violet, then deep blue. Fireflies blink near the ditch like tiny lamps carried by invisible hands. The air smells of supper, damp leaves, and smoke. You eat with others near the fire. The food is modest, but the mood carries something fuller than the bowls. A child falls asleep against an older sister, mouth open, utterly defeated by the day's excitement. Someone covers him with cloth. For a while, you forget to measure danger, not completely, never completely, but enough to feel the warmth of bodies near the fire, the sound of soft voices, and the comfort of food shared without hurry. That is no small thing. Then preparations for the coming labour begin. Blades are checked. Cloth wraps are washed and hung. A woman sets aside food for the morning. A man rubs grease into cracked hands before sleep. Sunday folds itself away. The plantation does not need to announce its return. It waits in the tools, the paths, the bell, and the dark fields beyond the cabins. Everyone feels it, yet the day has left something behind. A hymn line hums under someone's breath. A repaired shoe rests near the door. A clean shirt hangs from a peg. A child smiles in sleep, still holding a pebble from the game. These small things are not freedom, but they are evidence. You lie down as the cabin grows quiet. The air is still warm, and smoke threads through the room. Outside, frogs begin their evening chorus, patient and endless. Your body aches as all, but your mind carries different sounds now. Prayer, laughter, fiddle strings, cloth-slapping water, children arguing over impossible rules. Sunday's brief breath has passed through the quarters. It did not heal the wound. It helped people keep breathing. Illness enters quietly, like mist under a door, and everyone recognizes its shape before naming it. A cough lingers too long in one cabin. A child's forehead feels too warm beneath a mother's palm. A man rises from his pallet and nearly falls. The morning smells of wet ashes and fever. You see people watching one another more closely than usual, not with curiosity, with calculation, worry, and the old knowledge that sickness can spread faster than kindness can organize itself. Work still calls. The bell rings across the quarters with its hard metal voice, but several bodies move slowly. One woman ties a cloth around her head with shaking hands. Another hides a cough inside her sleeve. The sound is not hidden well. A driver notices, then looks away for one breath longer than expected. That tiny delay is almost a gift. It gives the coughing woman time to straighten before the overseer rides near. The air outside feels damp and yellowish with early light. Mosquitoes drift above puddles. Smoke from cooking fires hangs low, unwilling to climb. You're assigned to a work gang near the field edge, but the talk around you circles illness. Someone has chills. Someone has a swelling near the jaw. Someone saw a child vomiting during the night. No one uses dramatic language. Fear here is practical. Louisiana's low, wet plantation regions exposed enslaved communities to malaria, intestinal illness, respiratory infections, injuries, and seasonal fevers. Medical care was uneven, often delayed, and shaped by the owner's financial interests. Survival depended heavily on community knowledge and watchfulness. You feel that watchfulness in every glance. A young man works beside you with a grey cast to his face. Sweat gathers on his upper lip, though the morning is not yet hot. He grips his tool too tightly, as if strength can be forced back into the body. His breathing sounds shallow. An older woman nearby notices and shifts closer. She says something about weeds along the row, but her hand briefly touches his wrist. She's feeling for heat, pulse, and danger while pretending to discuss plants. He nods once. The overseer passes. Everyone bends lower. By mid-morning, the young man stumbles. It is not dramatic. One knee dips. His tool slips. And the row seems to tilt around him. 2 workers move at once, catching him under the arms before he hits the mud. For a hot beat, the field freezes. Then voices begin explaining too quickly. Heat, bad water, weak breakfast, a passing spell. Nothing serious, and of course, nothing that should interrupt the beautiful business of profit. The overseer curses the delay. The young man is dragged toward his shade, where someone gives him water in careful sips. His skin feels hot, then cold. His eyes open but do not focus properly. You kneel nearby, helpless and sweating. A healer from the quarters is called without anyone officially calling her. She appears with a pouch, a cup, and an expression that says panic is for amateurs. Her hands are steady. She smells faintly of bitter herbs, smoke, and crushed leaves. She asks short questions. When did it start? Did he eat? Any pain in the side? Has he passed water? The questions sound simple, but they gather a map. Enslaved healers often combined inherited knowledge, observation, local plants, and practical experience. Their work could be respected within the community while dismissed by white physicians, unless those physicians needed them. That contradiction was common enough to feel almost ordinary. The healer crushes leaves between her fingers and mixes them with water. The smell is sharp, green, and medicinal. She tells the young man to swallow slowly. He obeys badly. Some spills down his chin. A quirky remedy appears in the conversation. Someone mentions spiderwebs used to help stop bleeding on small cuts. Another adds that soot, grease, onion, and strange teas have each had their proud defenders. Medicine here can be creative, desperate, and occasionally alarming. The young man is moved back toward the quarters under watch. Whether he will be allowed to rest properly depends on temperament, timing, and how useful he is judged to be. That is the terrible arithmetic. You return to work, carrying the image of his unfocused eyes. The field seems louder now. Insects whine. Cane leaves scrape. Tools strike soil with dull persistence. Somewhere, a crow calls from the tree line, sounding far too pleased with itself. Your own body feels newly suspicious. Every ache becomes a question. Every wave of heat behind your eyes becomes a warning. You drink water slowly, remembering that too much too fast can turn the stomach. Near noon, a cut on your hand opens again. It is small, but dirt has worked into it. Sweat burns along the edges. A woman sees you flexing your fingers and pulls you aside while appearing to tie her shoe. She rinses the cut with a little water, then presses a bitter-smelling poultice against it. It stings fiercely. You whisper thanks. She answers that thanks is fine, but keeping the hand clean would be cleverer. Her tone is dry enough to count as medicine by itself. You wrap the hand with cloth. Infections could become dangerous quickly in plantation conditions. Cuts from cane leaves, tools, splinters, and machinery were common. Without clean dressings, rest, or reliable treatment, small wounds might threaten labour, mobility, and life. You look at your bandaged hand differently. The afternoon brings another kind of fear. A rumour moves from row to row, carried in fragments. Someone has hidden a tool. Someone plans to run. Someone has been accused. The details change with each whisper. Rumour is smoke. It fills every space. You cannot tell whether there is truth inside it. That is part of its power. People bend lower, speak less, and watch the overseer's face for signs. Historians still debate how many acts of resistance on plantations were carefully organized, spontaneous, individual, communal, or later exaggerated by fearful owners. The records often come from people who misunderstood what they feared. Silence may hide more truth than paper. The rumour settles near a man named Samuel, though no one says his name loudly. He works in the next row, tall, quiet, and careful. His eyes remain on the cane. When the overseer rides by, Samuel does not change pace. That restraint looks like courage. Resistance takes many forms here. Running away is one, breaking tools may be another, slowing work, feigning illness, hiding food, preserving family, practicing faith, teaching children, and refusing despair all belong to a larger story. Not every resistance looks like thunder. Some look like breathing. Later, you see Samuel near the tool shed. He hands over his hoe calmly when counted. The overseer examines it, turns it once, and says nothing. The rumour thins, but does not vanish. Samuel walks away with the same steady face. Only his fingers tremble. Toward evening, you are sent to carry broth to the sick child in the quarters. The bowl is wrapped in cloth to keep it warm. Its smell is mild, salty, and touched with herbs. The cabin you enter is darker than the others. A mother sits beside the pallet, wiping her child's forehead with a damp rag. The child's breathing is quick and shallow. A small cup sits nearby, stained from bitter tea. You set down the broth carefully. The mother thanks you with tired eyes. Her voice barely rises above the insects outside. She lifts the child and coaxes a spoonful past dry lips. The child swallows. Everyone watches. That tiny swallow becomes an event. A healer checks the child's skin, then asks for more water to cool cloths. Someone else repairs the cabin's smoky fire so the room will stay warm without choking everyone inside. Care gathers from different hands. No one has enough time, yet time is made. Outside, the sky turns copper behind the trees. Smoke from supper fires drifts between cabins. The air smells of beans, damp wood, and sickness carried in cloth. You sit near the doorway and listen to people speak softly. They discuss fever leaves, church prayers, water from a cleaner source, and whether the child should be moved away from drafts. One person says the moon affects fevers. Another disagrees with the confidence of someone who has seen too many moons do nothing useful. Nobody laughs. Then, surprisingly, the mother does, just once, quietly. It is not because anything is funny. It is because exhaustion sometimes opens strange doors. The sound passes quickly, night deepens, and the quarters become a patchwork of care and fear. Someone coughs in one cabin. Someone groans in another. A baby cries with sharp insistence before being fed. You carry water again. The bucket handle presses into your sore fingers. The well rope is damp and rough. When the bucket breaks the surface below, the splash echoes upward like a lonely answer. You return with water sloshing against your leg. Near the edge of the yard, two men stand in shadow, speaking so quietly the words vanish before reaching you. One points toward the tree line. The other shakes his head. You look away. Whatever they discuss, being seen listening could endanger everyone. A dog begins barking toward the road. Several adults stiffen. A lantern moves in the distance. Then another. Patrol riders, perhaps. Or plantation men checking movement after dark. The barking stops when someone grips the dog's collar. The silence afterward feels louder. Inside the sick child's cabin. The healer burns a small bundle of herbs near the doorway. Smoke curls upward with a bitter, clean scent. It may help the air. It may comfort the mother. It may do both, which is reason enough to night. The child sleeps fitfully. You step back into the yard and find Samuel sitting alone near a stump, sharpening a tool with slow strokes. Stone against metal creates a soft rasping sound. He does not look up. After a while, he says that a sharp edge wastes less strength. His voice is calm. Maybe he is speaking only of tools. Maybe not. You say nothing because silence can be respectful. The rouse continues. The plantation house glows beyond the dark fields, distant and serene. Illness there may bring a physician, clean sheets, broth served from polished bowls, and someone calling it unfortunate. Illness here brings calculation. Can the sick rest? Who covers their work? Who shares food? Who risks punishment to help? Who has herbs? Who can keep watch if fever turns? The questions crowd the night. Still, help moves. A woman carries extra cloth. A boy brings kindling. A man leaves a portion of his supper outside the sick young man's cabin and walks away before being thanked. Pride is allowed privacy. You eat late, barely tasting the food. Smoke stings your eyes. Your body feels heavy from field work, heat, and the constant listening that fear requires. The child's mother sings at last. Her song is very soft, almost too soft to hold its shape. It drifts through the cabin wall and into the yard, where insects answer without understanding. The melody carries sorrow, yes, but not surrender. You lie down later with your bandaged hand resting on your chest. The poultice smells bitter beneath the cloth. Your skin throbs in small waves. Around you, the cabin breathes uneasily. Someone whispers that the young man's fever has broken a little. Someone else says the child is still sleeping. Those words move through the dark like small candles shielded by hands. Not safety, but not nothing. You close your eyes and understand that illness reveals the plantation's lie. The system pretends people are labour units, counted and driven, yet every fever proves the truth it cannot erase. People are bound to people. That bond is fragile, watched, punished, and strained by hunger. Still, it holds in cups of broth, hidden pauses, bitter leaves, shared warnings, and songs kept low enough to survive. Outside are mosquitoes whine in the dark. Inside, someone keeps breathing. The week's last night arrives through a sky the colour of bruised plum, with smoke folding low between cabins. You stand at the edge of the quarters and feel the day's heat rising from the ground. It leaves slowly, as if Louisiana itself dislikes surrender. The air smells of damp soil, wood ash, cane syrup, sweat, and river wind. Somewhere beyond the fields, frogs begin their patient chorus. Their voices seem older than the plantation, older than the house, older than every ledger. You carry a bucket toward the well with arms that no longer feel surprised by pain. The rope is rough beneath your fingers. The handle creaks as water rises from darkness below. Cool drops splash your wrist. That small touch feels almost holy. The yard is busy with evening tasks. Fires brighten beneath iron pots. Children carry scraps of wood. A woman shakes cornmeal into boiling water while watching 3 conversations at once. She misses nothing. Near one cabin, a man repairs a broken rake tooth with a strip of wire. Beside him, another rubs grease into a mule's sore shoulder. Even animals require care after a week of hauling cane, mud, and human ambition. The mule sighs deeply. You understand the feeling. By 1837, Louisiana sugar had become deeply tied to wealth, credit, land speculation, river commerce, and enslaved labour. Plantations near the Mississippi could produce enormous profit, but that profit depended on intense seasonal work and constant control. The sweetness travelled outward while suffering stayed rooted here. You watch syrup darken in a small pot near the fire. It bubbles lazily, nothing like the violent kettles of the boiling house. A child stares at it with solemn devotion. Nobody blames him. Sugar is strange here. It is luxury and punishment, temptation and exhaustion, export and memory. Even one sticky spoonful carries too many meanings. A woman gives the child a tiny cool drop on a piece of cornbread. He eats it carefully, eyes widening despite himself. For 1 second, delight wins. Only 1 second. Then his mother wipes his chin and sends him to fetch water. The sky deepens. Firelight becomes the village's second sunset. Shadows move across cabin walls, stretching and shrinking with every gust. A man begins carving a notch into a small piece of wood. You ask what it marks, and he says days, debts, prayers, or all 3. His smile is brief enough to protect the answer. A quirky belief follows the carving. Someone says wood taken from a lightning-struck tree carries unusual strength. Another says it carries bad luck. A third says luck depends mostly on who is holding the knife. That argument feels sensible. The week has taught you that certainty is rare here. Weather lies. Owners lie. Ledgers lie by leaving out pain. Even silence can mean rest, fear, plotting, grief, or simple exhaustion. Historians still argue how much plantation records can reveal about enslaved inner life, since most were written by people who owned, managed, or profited from the system. The deepest truths often survive in songs, stories, archaeology, family memory, and careful reading against the grain. The fire pops. A child flinches, then laughs at himself, then his sister mocks him gently, because siblings remain siblings even here. You sit near the doorway and stretch your sore fingers. The skin across your palms feels tight and cracked. Small cuts from cane leaves sting whenever smoke drifts over them. Pain has become a kind of weather. People gather slowly in the yard. Not for celebration exactly, but because night pulls everyone toward shared warmth. A pot of beans passes from hand to hand. Cornbread breaks into uneven pieces. You receive your share. The food tastes smoky, salty, and humble. Hunger makes it important. Company makes it bearable. A woman tells a story about a riverboat cook who claimed he could season anything, then accidentally seasoned his own hat. The tale grows larger with every sentence. By the end, the hat has onions, pepper, and better manners than its owner. Laughter rises softly. It does not last long, but it is real. Across the yard, the sick child sleeps wrapped in cloth while her mother watches the small rise and fall of her chest. The fever has eased, though nobody trusts fever to stay polite. A healer leaves bitter tea beside the hearth. Care continues, near the fence. Samuel stands, half hidden by shadow, speaking with two others. Their voices are too low to carry. One points toward the river road, then lowers his hand quickly. You look away. Not all courage asks for witnesses. Resistance may be remembered as rebellion, flight, sabotage, or open refusal. But much of it moves quietly through daily life. A hidden tool, a protected child, a stolen hour, a preserved name, a forbidden prayer, a shared warning. These acts may look small from far away. They are not small here. A lantern appears near the main road. Conversation thins at once. The fiddle hidden in one cabin remains silent. Someone calls a child indoors with unusual calm. The lantern passes. Only when darkness closes again do shoulders lower. The plantation house glows in the distance, its windows bright with lamps. Perhaps glasses clink inside. Perhaps someone discusses the crop, the market, the river stage, or dinner. From here, that brightness looks cold. You hear the cane fields beyond the cabins, rustling under a night breeze. The leaves scrape together like thousands of quiet blades. The fields are not empty just because work has paused. They are waiting. A man beside you says cane grows even while people sleep. He says it softly, with no drama. The remark lands heavily because it is true in more than one way. The crop keeps demanding. The system keeps planning. Yet the quarters keep remembering. Inside one cabin, a grandmother teaches a child a line from an old song. She repeats it slowly, shaping each word until the child catches the melody. The child's voice wavers, then steadies. Memory passes through breath. No overseer can count that properly. You step close to the fire as the night damp gathers. Smoke clings to your clothes and hair. The flames warm your shins while the air behind you cools against your back. Comfort arrives divided as always. Someone hands you a cup of thin coffee substitute, roasted dark and stretched almost beyond recognition. It tastes bitter, smoky, and faintly burnt. You drink it like treasure. Your body has learned gratitude in uncomfortable ways. A woman nearby mends a sleeve by firelight. Her needle rises and falls with patient rhythm. Each stitch catches the glow for one bright instant, then disappears into cloth. That is how survival often looks, a bright instant. A hidden stitch, a thing repaired enough to serve one more day. The night grows quieter. Children drop into sleep wherever adults allow them. Men finish sharpening tools. Women fold cloth, check embers, and cover food from rats. The chores shrink but do not vanish. You walk a few steps beyond the last cabin and look toward the river. You cannot see it clearly, but you hear a distant low sound, water moving against banks. The river carried boats, sugar, rumours, sold people, free people, letters, diseases, and dreams. It moves whether anyone grants permission. That thought settles inside you. In the distance, an owl calls once from the trees. The sound is hollow and calm. Mosquitoes whine near your ears, devoted as tax collectors. Naturally, they are still working. You return to the cabin doorway. The room inside is dim, smoky, and crowded. Yet it no longer feels like only shelter. It feels like a vessel carrying names the plantation tries to reduce. Every face has a world behind it. The man with the carved wood puts it away. The woman with the needle bites off thread. The mother beside the sick child finally lowers her head, though her hand remains on the blanket. You stand still and let the sounds gather. Frogs, embers, breathing, cloth shifting, a whispered prayer, a wooden cup set carefully on the floor. This is the week's last night, but not an ending for them. The bell will ring again. Cain will cut skin again. Smoke will rise again from the boiling house. Still, the night is not empty. It holds small victories too quiet for monuments. A fever cooling, a child fed, a joke remembered, a tool hidden, a song taught, a wound wrapped, a name spoken with love. The plantation counts barrels. The people count one another. You lie down on the rough pallet and feel every board beneath you. Your muscles ache in layers, deep and dull. Your hands throb under cloth. Through a crack in the wall, moonlight rests on the floor like pale water. You listen to the cabin breathe. Sleep comes slowly, but it comes. Before it takes you, one truth remains clear in the warm darkness. A week here would not simply test your strength. It would reveal how much survival depends on others. And now, let the night soften around you. Let the smoke grow thinner, and let the harsh bell fade far beyond hearing. The cane fields become only dark lines beneath the moon, no longer pressing toward your hands. The river keeps moving in the distance, slow and brown and patient, carrying reflections of stars across its restless skin. You do not need to follow it now. You only listen. The cabins settle into quiet. The fire sinks into red embers. A mother's hand rests beside a sleeping child. A repaired shoe waits near the door. A folded cloth holds tomorrow's food, guarded by care and memory. The frogs continue their deep little hymn from the wet places, and insects stitch the darkness with steady sound. Breathe gently. The story leaves you with the people who endured more than any single night can hold. Their labour sweetened distant tables, but their lives were never only labour. They loved, argued, healed, taught, remembered, resisted, and made meaning in spaces built to deny them rest. That truth remains, quiet but unbroken. Let your shoulders loosen, let your jaw unclench, let the smell of smoke become faint, the mud become cool, and the fields grow soft at the edges of thought. The moonlight widens across the floor, calm as water. Nothing asks you to rise. Sleep may come like river fog, slowly covering the hard shapes of the day. Let it gather around your feet, your hands, your tired eyes. Let the last sound be not the bell, but breathing. Slow, warm, human breathing. End of script. Sleep well.